Hello everyone and welcome to another ROKER Report podcast following another victory in League One. I'm your host Chris Wynn and I'm delighted to welcome two people I'm sure you will recognise to review a solid, if unspectacular, 2-0 victory over Swindon Town at the Energy Check County Ground on Saturday. First, we have someone who is taking a break from asking the questions as he insists he has opinions worth listening to. It is, of course, Connor Bromley. Welcome, Connor.
Hi, yes. I just thought that I've got so many hot takes that I feel like I should give them every once in a while, and being host, you struggle to get that opinion in, especially if John's on there because he's a talker.
Well, I'm sure you've got everyone on the edge of their seat waiting for your views now, Connor. We'd originally tried to get Hatman, so thank you for stepping in as backup, Connor.
No, Hat Guy's very negative.
Oh, Hat Guy.
Yeah. Everyone calls him Hat Man, he's Hat Guy. That's the YouTube link. I can see Bomber looking very confused there, but I've got an alter ego on my YouTube channel, which you can subscribe to. There's a free plug. Thanks.
I will now. Thanks.
Well, that was my next line, you see. He's a chance for a free plug. So everyone get on and subscribe to Connor's Hat Guy and Connor Bromley duo. And secondly, we have someone who I'm sure you will recognise. You probably heard him already, mainly as nobody else at ROKER Report sounds like a farmer. All the way from Gloucester, we have Bomber. Hello to you, mate.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Chris. Yeah, I'm all right. You okay?
Yeah, I'm not bad. I think is it your first time on a main pod?
It is, yeah. First time on the main, yeah. I've been promoted or relegated to the main pod, depending on how you see it.
So you're going to miss playing away today?
Yeah. Well, miss in inverted commas.
I did think about putting one in, but no, that's Brett's domain. Got a lot to go through in the game, so let's get into it. Fairly routine 2-0 away win for Sunderland at Swindon Town on Saturday, thanks to, I felt it was a pretty bizarre goal from Charlie Wyke, who seemed to sneak to the near post without anybody seeing his 6'3", 6'4" frame kind of tiptoe to the front post, followed by a penalty that was won and scored by Chris Maguire following even more dreadful defending. So let's get your thoughts in the build-up to the game, though. Connor, we'll start with you. What were your thoughts on Phil Parkinson's team selection? Because we already had issues at the back, and then we lost Hume on the left. So was it a surprise to you that it was 09 in the back three and not McLaughlin?
To be honest, when I saw the 11, I was sort of scrambling to work out exactly what he was doing. I thought he might have went 4 at the back. That was like an initial thought, and I was like, no, and then I looked at it and I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. He must be playing Gooch at fullback. But 09 did all right against Carlisle, didn't he, in the whatever check I trade leasing.com Football League trophy, whatever it is now. He did all right there, so I wasn't surprised to see him slot in. Losing Denver obviously is a big blow because he's essentially he's pretty much the way we play. A lot of our stuff goes through him down that left-hand side, so it was hard to lose him. And of course, the defensive crisis we've got going on, which has obviously been further extended with Willis getting injured, isn't ideal either. So I thought Parkinson probably selected as good as a team as he could. I think that he probably got that spot on, and I think that was justified throughout the game.
And Bomber, I mean, what were your thoughts on the decision to have 09 in the back three? I mean, as well as 09, did you think it was a no-brainer for Gooch to slot in on the left for Hume?
Yeah, I think so. Being as he's pretty much the only person who could have slotted in on that left-hand side. I kind of commend Parky a little bit for sticking to his guns in that formation. It would have been easy to switch to a back four, but then obviously that has ramifications further up the pitch for us as well. You know, what do you do with the midfield? What do you do with the strikers? However, I was surprised to see 09 staying at centre back, one of the three. I would have preferred McLaughlin to have started perhaps, and then 09 going as right wing back. So your back three would have been Bailey Wright, Willis, and Conor McLaughlin. So I was a little bit surprised in that respect, but not surprised to see Gooch on the left. But in the end, it was vindicated because it's another clean sheet. I think Burge had probably one save to make in the whole game. And I don't know whether you commend the performances of 09 and McLaughlin, or is that mainly down to Bailey Wright and his ability to grab his defensive players by the scruff of the neck and put them into shape and just basically shout them. And did he talk 09 through that entire game at centre back? If he did, then the pair of them did a fantastic job. And like I said, it's a clean sheet, so you can't really argue with it.
Yeah. And just quickly on that left-hand side, Bomber, but do you think he's also been vindicated because there was so many calls in the transfer window for him to strengthen on the left-hand side? I mean, and then we lost Hume straight away, and everyone was kind of crying out saying, well, why didn't we bring someone else in? But I mean, Gooch came in, and we've got the young lad, I think it's Kieran Dunn, or I might get his first name wrong, but we've got a young lad who can slot in on the left. So, I mean, do you think we're covered on the left then?
I'd certainly like to see someone in that position as a specialist, as a backup. You know, Lyndon Gooch, for all intents and purposes, he's playing there because he's pretty much the only other left-sided player we've got. He does a job there, but to answer your question about the vindication and is Parky vindicated with it, you know, everyone's always vindicated in their decisions until it goes wrong. So, you know, for the time being, yeah, he absolutely is. But the minute something else happens and Lyndon Gooch has to come out of that position, then all of a sudden we're thinking, oh, well, where's our depth? And it's not so much, he's not so vindicated in making that. But for the time being, you know, like I said, albeit Swindon I thought were quite poor, we've adapted to those changes really well. And it's another clean sheet. And, you know, Gooch did really, really well in there. I thought Conor McLaughlin did really, really well after he moved into centre-back. So, yeah, I mean, if Willis is out for a prolonged period of time, it does leave us very, very threadbare at the back there, particularly with Feeney and Shamajli. But, yeah, I think we look solid enough. So I'm happy with it for the time being.
And we'll come back on to those possible issues at the back. But at the other end of the pitch, Connor, O'Brien and Danny Graham were hooked from the last league game at Charlton and were replaced by Chris Maguire and Charlie Wyke. What was your initial reaction to another rotated pairing up front?
I feel like Parkinson must look at every single game individually and decide what he thinks is best. I mean, I watched his post-game interview and he said that Chris and Charlie did really well against Carlisle, which is why he put them in, because I think they both gotten a couple of goals, and 3 goals between them and 3 assists, I think, in the game. So I can understand that thinking. I also think Aiden O'Brien has been poor. I think if we're being brutally honest, he's not been great since we've brought him in. He hasn't really done anything to excite me watching him. I think he's a hard worker, but he doesn't seem to have much quality. I'm hoping that he grows into that though. But you look at that forward line and it's really difficult to see how a striker can flourish in the way that we play going forward. It often feels like we sort of bypass the middle striker. They're there to be more of a nuisance to help bring in other players. And we need players like Chris Maguire to come in and play because he has that little bit of quality. I would love to obviously see Aiden McGeady back in the fold, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But I think Sunderland are crying out for players like them who can, you know, add a bit of spark and creativity, because at the minute, I would pretty much say that Maguire's the only player we have who can kind of create something out of nothing. I think Gooch has been poor this season. He did all right yesterday at left wing back. He was industrious, but going forward, he's not been great, minus for the Oxford game earlier in the season. So we've got problems going forward, and I think that's what we need to address sort of if we're going to get promoted this year, because defensively we're obviously going to be very good, but we just look anemic in the final third. And I don't think, no matter what you do, moving that attacking 3 round, we're going to struggle to score goals because we just don't look set up to allow a front 3 to flourish.
Yeah, you mentioned Parkinson's comments that these were pulled in because of the Carlisle game. I mean, for me, watching that Carlisle game, I mean, I don't know how you'd think or look at my strikers after that, especially after that first half, and go, oh, look at how great they're playing and fantastic they're linking up, and Charlie Wyke's looking so mobile up front. That first half was pretty horrendous. So, I mean, is that just kind of manager speak, or, I mean, where do you think he got that from?
I think it's manager speak. I think it's also building up Charlie to give him a little bit of confidence, because what I would say about Charlie Wyke and Sunderland strikers is they just don't have any confidence between them. You can see watching Sunderland play, and even, you know, I know from my interactions with them last year, face to face, you can tell that they're just lacking in confidence. The team isn't fitted to suit strikers. You know, we're not geared up to let Will Grigg score 20 goals. He's an afterthought in how we set up. And under Parkinson, it's defence first, which is fine because we will win a lot of games with Parkinson's methods at the minute. But I think you are right, back to the initial point. Yeah, it's manager speak, because Charlie Wyke yesterday was fine. I think he was no more than fine. The goal he scored was more, I would call it defending by Swindon, but it wasn't defending. I don't know what they were playing at. So it wasn't like Wyke did something brilliant and actually won headers in the box. He wasn't doing that. And he needs to start doing that if he's going to keep, you know, himself in the team every week, because at the minute, you're not going to have that chance fall to you every single game. It's not going to happen. And we've seen since Wyke's came in here, he struggled to create chances. I can't even think of him scoring many headers, which is embarrassing for a target man. And I think Parkinson he's just trying to blow smoke up his arse in the hope that it fires him up and get some scoring goals because we need somebody to get something this season because you're not going to get promoted if none of your strikers are scoring.
I mean, Bomber will come, kind of touched on the style there, and Bomber will come back to that. But just quickly on this kind of selection of, the personnel who he's picking up front and he's rotating them. I mean, is the argument that we're getting results, we're kind of, close to the top of the table, we're in touching distance to the top two, but is the argument that, even though we're getting results, we could improve our attacking play and be more consistent if we had a two that he's stuck with up front?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. It's an easy decision for him to make at the minute because, like you said, we're at the top. We're winning games, but we're winning games. It sounds silly, but we're winning games because we're able to keep clean sheets, not because we're fantastic going forward and we're outscoring teams. Yeah, for the thing for strikers, you need, and Parky's almost doing it. You need to be able to give strikers a run of games to say, okay, go and prove yourself. I'm going to give you 3 or 4 games. I want you to get 2 or 3 goals, and that will cement your place in the team. While he's rotating it so much and bringing people in and bringing people out, that's not possible. The only person who seems to have a run of games is Charlie Wyke, and for me it was almost unfortunate that he scored yesterday because it was pretty much the only thing of note that he did. But you can guarantee that it guarantees his place in the team. I don't know. A lot of the fans were calling for Greg to have a chance this season. I don't know what he's got to do to get that chance. But even at 2-0, as soon as we scored that second goal, there was what, 25 minutes left or so. Just stick Greg and Graham up front, or and just see what they do. Or just change it up, give them a chance to get a couple of goals and make a stake for a place in the team in the following game. But yeah, nobody's going to get into any sort of form. Nobody's going to get into any sort of rhythm whilst they don't know. They're constantly looking over their shoulder, not knowing if they're going to be in the starting lineup from one game to the next.
I think something as well, just a quick point around Parkinson, is the fact that our 2 most expensive assets, i.e. McGeady and Will Grigg, aren't being utilised at the minute. And I find that interesting because as an owner, I would certainly be looking at it like, well, I've forked out some good money on these players and we're not getting anything out of them. Now the transfer window's closed, McGeady's not going anywhere, so a good manager surely should be trying to fit him back in.
Well, Connor, that's the second time you've mentioned, so let's quickly go on that McGeady point. Do you think there's, even a 1% chance he's got a future at Sunderland and we'll see him again on the pitch?
I think if I'm a football manager, or if I'm looking at resources in a department at any workplace, and you've got somebody like McGeady who the perception is that he's a knob, essentially, and I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that McGeady's opinionated. He is opinionated. He's very intelligent. And I think, he does look at himself probably as above playing in League One, and so therefore he expects a higher level of play. If you're a football manager and you can't manage your best player, and I think we can all agree that Aiden McGeady is technically Sunderland's best player. Mm-hmm. If you can't manage him, then that's a serious question mark on your head. At the minute, he's getting away with it because we're keeping clean sheets. But at the point where we're not keeping, clean sheets every game, at the minute we're on course for like 36 clean sheets. That's not going to happen. You need players like a McGeady to come in and score goals, or a Will Grigg to come in and score goals. He's not give Grigg, since he came in, really a chance. And, we wonder why we're not scoring goals in the attacking third. Well, the 2 reasons are simply that our 2 best attacking players aren't playing. And I think eventually that'll be, if we don't go up this season, Parkinson fails, that'll be the thing that costs him, was the fact that he couldn't manage both Grigg and McGeady. It seems as simple as that for me.
Yeah, I think you're right, Connor. It goes back to what you touched on earlier as well. Like, as an owner, having spent money on those 2 players, and they are probably our 2 most valuable assets. I know the owners probably don't want to get too involved in selection decisions, but would you not knock on the door and go, Phil, come on, what are you doing here? We've got a £4 million striker who's not barely played an hour of football, and somebody who got training with the under 23s or the under 21s. So what's going on here? Can you imagine if those 3, if we'd had 3 0-0 draws, which is quite feasible given that we have been quite toothless up front. If we had those 3 0-0 draws and Will Grigg and Aiden McGeady are nowhere near a squad, let alone a 90 minutes, the backlash for that would be enormous. It's our 2 most creative players, and like you said, our 2. McGeady, certainly our most technically gifted player, isn't getting a look in when we are looking so toothless up front. We're getting away with it at the minute purely because of our defence being so good.
And just to play kind of devil's advocate, I mean, I'll come back to you, Connor, on this because you raised it. From Parkinson's point of view, he's worked all summer. He's with his squad of players, and you can tell because obviously we've already mentioned the way he's set up, but they've put the hours on the training pitch. You can see that every time they go out on the pitch. He's drilled them. Every player knows their job on that pitch under Phil Parkinson. So from his point of view, why would you risk that, bringing in someone who's had nothing to do with that work, doesn't know his role, doesn't know his place in that team, doesn't know, what the other players' roles in that team are, and then you bring him in and just say, get the ball and go. But as a defensive shape, he would be involved in that defensive setup when we haven't got the ball.
There's a few prongs to that. Number one, in terms of him getting used to the defensive setup and the way we play, he's an international quality player. He's played in the Premier League, he's played Champions League. I don't think it's going to take McGeady long to get adjusted to that. And I think last season when Jack Ross was there, and sort of after Madger had left the previous year, I think McGeady did well defensively. I never think of him as a defensive liability, so I don't think he would struggle to fit into the team. But I also think that any arguments or the reason why McGeady isn't in, I don't think anybody really knows exactly what it was that he's not in there. At this point, surely he's humbled. Surely at his age, he wants to play football. In fact, I know for a fact he would want to play football because, he loves football. You would think that this would be an opportunity for Parkinson to call him in the office and say, look, we're bringing you in, Aiden. I want you to be part of the squad now, but here's some ground rules. You're not the locker room leader anymore. You're not the one who's controlling the fines. We've got players to do that. I want you, though, to be a part of the team. I want you to, fit into my system, and I'm going to give you a chance to get selected. And if you can prove yourself, you'll get in the team. And I'm sure that McGeady, being an international player who's played for top clubs, would accept that management and would think that that was good. And then they can just draw a line under it. That's what I would do. That's what a good manager would do. And I feel like at the minute we've only got a certain amount of resources at Sunderland. I don't know how it impacts the salary cap. I'm going to guess that would be under with McGeady there, but I don't know. So maybe that could be an issue. But to me, that's just good management. That's what I want from my football manager. I don't think that Alex Ferguson would, not select Cristiano Ronaldo if he fell out with him. He would select him. He'd find a way of fitting him in. And I think that that's, for us, it sounds a bit ridiculous, but McGeady is our best player. He's maybe not, the Cristiano Ronaldo or something, but he is our best player, and so we should be trying to find a way of getting him in it. It just seems to make sense.
Almost like Phil Parkinson's trying to make a point, isn't it? Like regardless of what McGeady does now in terms of training, in terms of knocking on his door and having a chat with him, it's almost like I need to make an example of you. And the minute he relents on that and puts him back into the team, for some reason, Parky might think that that's a sign of weakness, and people will start taking the piss out of him. I don't know, but like you said, kind of no one really knows kind of what's gone on, and what must have happened for him to be frozen out so much for so long. I don't know, but it's quite clear that we need somebody like him in the team at the minute to just spark that forward three, the forward five, however we're playing, because it's just not happening at the minute.
Well, there's Connor's hot take. It would take Aiden McGeady 2 minutes to grasp a Parky ball. Well, let's get into the game itself. We seem to be in control from the off, but other than Grant Ledbetter trying to score from 40, 50 yards with that free kick, the first incident, it was probably Jordan Willis going off injured and being replaced by Jack Diamond, which meant Conor McLaughlin slotted into the back three at that point from his role at right wing back where he started, and Diamond took his place on the right wing. Connor, how do you think Diamond did in his first League One game?
To be honest, I didn't think he didn't really do much wrong. He didn't really do much right. I felt he tried to take on some players and didn't really. I think he was maybe successful once in the game at doing that. But overall, getting thrown in 20 minutes into a match and he didn't really put a foot wrong defensively. He was fine. I thought he did quite well. I think he'd be happy with his performance, and I think it's harsh from Parkinson to throw in a young right winger into that kind of fullback role. It's not his natural position, and I think to do that with a young player is a bit, I would say it's like almost mean, because, you would like to think if you're bringing in a young lad, you would put them in that preferred position and not try and shoehorn them in somewhere else where they're going to be exposed as well. The chances are he could have been megged, he could have been taken on. That was possible. And putting him there was maybe, maybe it's a learning point for Diamond, and maybe it was Parkinson saying, you know what, it's not just going to be going forward, you are going to have to learn the other side of the game. But I think Diamond did okay. I think he'll be happy with his work, and I think he's proven that he's a selection option in a few places in the team. The worry is that he's now going to be seen as a right back and the cover for Lugo 9, and I would be a bit sort of disappointed if that was the case, because I think he's got a lot to offer in that final third now. Kind of want to see him up there.
Yeah, I mean, Bomber, just on touch on what Connor said there about him being right wing back. Do you think it's just a case of he's doing that because of the size of our squad, rather than where Parkinson would want to play him?
I think it's the size of the squad, but I also think it's down to the way in which he wants to play. If we're saying that Diamond is more of a right winger and more of an attacking player, well, that realistically in that kind of 3-5-2, the only right-sided player is going to be at right wing back. So it's kind of, if you want to play in an advanced right position, you have to play on that as a right wing back and be able to do both. I think it's good that Parkinson's shown enough confidence in him to throw him in there, because, like Connor said, it's clearly not defensively. He's not defensively inclined naturally, but he did a decent enough job there. But I think he's almost thrown him in there to say, if you want to come in the team, this is where you're going to be, because you can do the forward stuff, but I need you to do the coming back and helping out the defence stuff as well. So yeah, he's almost. I think that's where Parkinson sees him playing probably. We've got too many options through the centre and too many options up front. So at the moment, if he's going to get a chance, it's going to be in that position.
From what I read, Diamond started out kind of at youth level as a striker originally. I don't know how right that was. It might have been Wikipedia, but I read that somewhere that he started out up front. And looking at the kind of passing maps over the last few weeks with Josh Scowen in the team, you can see Josh Scowen's been all down that right, working with kind of 09 down the right-hand side. So, I mean, obviously, I think we've got better players, or more established with more experienced players in that role, like Josh Scowen's playing at the moment, where it's that advanced kind of inside right role, I suppose. And I think Jack Diamond would be kind of suited for that role. But with the amount of attacking midfielders, Connor, do you see at some point maybe Parkinson trying to play him further up the field?
I think normally you would expect to see that. I would like to see that happen in like the Football League trophy games, try him further up. And to be fair, I think he has done that. Do I see Parkinson doing it? No, because I think he's got a reluctance to play younger players. I think Parkinson's a manager who trusts experience. He's somebody who really values that. And that's fair enough. He's had success. He knows how to get teams out of this league. So I'm not going to discredit that as a method. But it would be, nice to see Diamond given a chance further afield. And I think you lump Dan Neil in there as well. Wasn't on the bench yesterday, but did well against. Every time I've watched Dan Neil, I thought he's played well. I think he doesn't let you down. He's clearly capable of playing at this level, and he's clearly worth a shot and worth viewing. So I would like to see them given a chance in the league. We're playing a game on Tuesday night. You've got a squad to rotate. I know defensively we might not be able to do that, but in midfield, I see no reason why we can't. So it would be nice to see maybe some changes on Tuesday, whereby we might actually see a Dan Neil be on the bench and maybe come on for the last half an hour, but I won't hold my breath on that. It feels like a lot of football managers at this level will not trust young players, and I think it's because their job's on the line all the time. Parkinson's 5 games from the sack, as every manager is in this league. You're a few defeats away, and I think that's why there's a reluctance to trust these younger players, despite the fact that every time they've played, they've looked good. So yeah, I would like to see Diamond get further forward. Do I see Parkinson doing it anytime soon? No, I don't. I think he'll be on the bench. I think he might come on further forward as a substitute, but I don't see him starting there anytime soon.
Slightly frustrating on the Dan Neil thing. I think if he'd had a similar loan move to Diamond last season, I think he would be more involved this season. Just going off the Carlisle game, I think he started tiring in that second half. And I think he's just lack of kind of first team football, whether in a club like Harrogate or in the conference or something like that. I think last season, if Dan Neil had that, he would have been a few steps on. But going back to you, Bomber, it was Conor McLaughlin's first run out. But how do you think he did in that back three? And if it does turn out that Willis is out, even if it's just for the next game, might that be enough to force Phil Parkinson to change his system? Or do you think he'll continue to play players kind of out of position to keep that shape because it's already kind of done a job for us this season?
So I don't think there's any chance of the shape changing. I think that 3-5-2, he's wedded to that now. I don't see that changing. I think that's been reinforced by the fact that McLaughlin, that until Willis went off, I thought he was quite poor. He didn't look like a right wing back. He looked like somebody who was completely uncomfortable playing there. He gave the ball away quite a bit. Didn't really offer an awful lot going forward when you compare him to what 09 does for us in that position. When he went to right centre back, I thought he was really good. I know Swindon didn't really offer an awful lot, but I would have no problem with him slotting in there in the midterm should Willis be out for a prolonged period of time. You have Flanagan, Wright and McLaughlin. I wouldn't have a problem with that back three at the minute. So I think he did enough to at least pacify me in thinking that, yeah, we can carry on with this 3-5-2 and have those as a back three. It does obviously leave us very, very light. I think if we were to lose anybody else in that back line, I think Parkinson's hand would almost be forced to go to a flat back four, just because we just literally wouldn't have enough people to even shoehorn into centre-back, let alone specialists in that position. But yeah, I thought McLaughlin was decent enough without being under too much pressure. He did what he needed to do. His positioning was good. He put in a few decent tackles, a few decent stops. Never really looked that shaky on the ball, because at right centre-back it was more or less, just win it and send it on its way to somebody else. And it's a different job than what he had to do at right wing back. So yeah, I wouldn't have any problem with him staying there for a short term anyway.
And sticking with you, I wanted to mention Grant Ledbetter again, because he completely controlled the tempo of the game. He just kept ticking us over. He kept switching play. He just kept kind of dictating everything. And we've been repeating ourselves for a few weeks now on Grant, but he just keeps pulling out the performances. So, I mean, how impressive was Ledbetter at Swindon?
He, like you said, he dictated the game. I mean, Ledbetter's renaissance, it's the first time I've had a chance to comment on it, but it's been phenomenal, really, for how I can't recall a player being written off so badly to then come and just completely make everyone's opinions 180. And he's, effectively, he's kind of the first name on the team sheet now, which you wouldn't have 6 months ago. You would have thought, we were talking about, I think Ledbetter will retire. His legs have gone, this, that and the other, but the resurgence has been fantastic, and it's brilliant to see. And his performance yesterday was reflective of how he's performed the last 3 or 4 games. He's been vital. He's been in that role where he can dictate the play, he can dictate the tempo, he can get on the ball. He has got a good range of passing, and just that experience in there as well. He was brilliant, and long may that continue for me. It's just a shame that we didn't see it the back end of last season or the beginning of last season. There wasn't technically a back end of last season. Obviously he's had his troubles, and I think that just goes to show that was weighing a lot heavier on his mind than perhaps we gave him credit for. Because he seems to be over it now, or at least past it to a point where he can function better, and the performance is a showing on the pitch as a result.
Yeah, I mean, just to bring you in on Ledbetter, Connor, because the system's so set up for Ledbetter to be in that position. You can see he controls our performances. You can see how much influence he has on the pitch. But with the game coming on Tuesday, how much of a concern do you think it is that Ledbetter can deal with the Saturday, Tuesday routine?
I think that he probably should be all right with it. I mean, he's a professional. He's somebody who looks after himself. I don't see Ledbetter struggling to play Saturday, Tuesday. If he is struggling, though, maybe you give him an hour. But we do have options in midfield. We've kind of talked about Dan Neil, so there is the chance to change that round. It's possible maybe that adds another attacking player in there. I mean, it depends really on what sort of injuries we have on Tuesday. Maybe if Willis is fit, then that can have a knock-on effect, which means that you maybe aren't relying on Grant Ledbetter because you can move Gooch further forward, and then you can go 5-2-3 and all that sort of stuff. So there is the chance that injuries will impact it, but I don't see Ledbetter struggling with Saturday, Tuesday. I mean, yes, he's 33, 34, something like that. But age is, everyone's age is irrelevant, isn't it? It depends how you deal with it yourself. Some players struggle playing Saturday, Tuesday when they're in their early 20s, and some players can just do it their whole career. And I haven't seen anything about Grant struggling. It's not obvious when you hear interviews with him or when you hear interviews with the manager that there's doubts over whether or not he can play 2 games in a week. So I think Grant will probably play. But certainly, just to echo what Bomber said about Grant, it's clear that last season he was a shell of himself, and we know that he's had mental health struggles and all that, and he's kind of talked about it. There was a good article in The Athletic, actually, I think last week, which kind of highlighted that. But it's clear now, this is the player that we thought we were getting. We thought we were going to get kind of a, combative, good passer, dictates the game. And yesterday, I just thought he was constantly in the right place to intercept the ball, constantly just buzzing around the centre circle, just picking up pieces. And I don't know if he played any straight passes. And there was that clever free kick he did where he tried to chip the keeper, and that shows to me that he's a player with a lot of confidence at the minute. The one thing I'd like to see is take Maguire off corners because he can struggle to beat the first man. Put Ledbetter back on them because we know he's got a good foot, and we saw when he first came in that his corners were brilliant. And, the corner thing is ridiculous anyway because they're professional footballers. I don't know how you can't beat the first man off a corner, because even me, I can beat the first man off a corner. I'm not saying I'm going to hit a player accurately, but I can at least get the ball sort of roughly towards the penalty spot. And I struggle to see how a professional footballer can't do that. And this isn't lambasting Maguire because I thought he was brilliant. I don't want to hammer him too much, but Howie, come on.
Now, Steven Gerrard got away with it for 15 years, taking corners and not beating the first man corner, so can't be that bad.
I should have put Harry Kane on corners. That's obviously the answer.
I mean, just on one thing you mentioned, Connor. I mean, I'm older than Gran Ledbetter, and I can assure you that age isn't irrelevant.
Well,
So,
could you play Saturday, Tuesday?
no, I couldn't play Saturday. I couldn't warm up for Saturday, to be honest, but that's a different story. So yeah, back into the game, Charlie Wyke opened the score, and after 37 minutes when Lyndon Cooch crossed from the left to find Wyke without a defender, within about 20 yards of him or something ridiculous like that. And at 1-0 up, 5 minutes into the second half, Swindon get a shout of a penalty. Now, Connor, I mean, it looked a bit clumsy to me. Did we get away with one there?
I think we got away with one because when I was watching it, I was like, oh God, that's a penalty. But then you kind of watch it back and you think the Swindon player sort of buys it. I mean, Luke doesn't go to tackle him, does he? He kind of stands there and their guy sort of runs into him. But if this was if this was a penalty for Sunderland, would I be saying it was a penalty? I think I probably would. So on that basis, I'd probably say we did get away with it. I think it was certainly probably a 70-30 in Swindon's favour. Kind of thought it would be a soft one to concede, but I did think it was a penalty. But I don't think Luke could have done much about it because he didn't really move his foot. He just kind of stood there and the guy ran into him when he knocked the ball past him. So it's one of them. In the Premier League, I think that would have been a penalty though. I think it's just, VAR would have definitely overturned that one.
Bomber, did you have your red and white tinted glasses on with that one?
No, I thought it was a penalty. As soon as he went down, and you saw Luke stand there with his arms up in the air. I was like, oh, and I was sat there and I was waiting for the whistle. I was just waiting for it, and then 2 seconds passed, 3 seconds passed, 4 seconds passed, and I was like, oh, okay, he's not giving it. And so yeah, I did think it was. It's one of those, like Connor said, it is a soft one to give away, but you'd be raging if it wasn't given for you. And I think it's typical person playing out of position, not really getting their body shape, not really getting their positioning correct. Because he, like Connor said, he didn't really put in a tackle. He just got an awkward side of the player that allowed the attacker to take advantage of it, and he kind of just stood there. And there was contact, albeit minimal. But yeah, I think that's just somebody playing out of position, not really knowing where to stand, how to defend that in that area. But yeah, it was a pen for me. So we did get away with it.
Yeah, my wife had to ask me what was going on in the match, because I have to admit I was quite genuinely laughing out loud at the Swindon bench, because you wouldn't you? Really?
Yeah.
To be fair. And then just before the hour, Bomber Maguire went free on the right and cut inside and ended up winning and converting a penalty. I mean, first of all, was the penalty a no-brainer? And in terms of Maguire, I think Connor might have touched on it earlier, but is he one of the first names down on the team sheet? Because even when he can disappear from a game for half an hour, he potentially comes up and has one of these moments.
Yeah, so firstly, I think it was as much of a penalty as the one that wasn't given for Swindon. You could tell that Chris is obviously trying to play for it, because there was a space for him to try and curl a left-footed shot into that bottom left corner, but instead he decided to knock the ball further away from goal, knowing that impact was coming. So he's 100% played for it, and as he has put the penalty away, you commend him for it. I wasn't that convinced on the penalty itself. I think the keeper, he went straight down the middle, didn't he? But I think the keeper did kind of get a hand to it just about, but it was just too strong to stop. But yeah, to the second part of your question, he along with Ledbetter and probably Bailey Wright, they're the three that you have to have in your team at the minute, week in, week out, game in, game out. Because with the absence of, I'll mention him again, a McGeady or a more creative player, he stands head and shoulders above everybody else for me, even above Gooch in terms of his ability to create something out of nothing. We were so heavily reliant season before last on McGeady's ability to create something out of nothing, and Maguire's the closest we've got to that now. And he is a League One player. I don't think he would cut it necessarily in the Championship, but you're quite right. He's the one person who could be anonymous for 85 minutes of a game and then do something like he did yesterday. I'm not saying that he was anonymous yesterday, by far from it, but he could have been anonymous for 85 minutes of that game, won that penalty, and then all of a sudden it's 2-0, game's won, thanks very much. And I don't see anybody else at the moment in that team that has that ability. So I think we do rely quite heavily on him, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Connor, just quickly on that penalty, Maguire seemed to be going down a long time before the contact came, but did the tackle just deserve to give away a penalty?
Yeah, it was clumsy, wasn't it? And I think, Maguire, I don't think Maguire would have risked not getting a shot off if he didn't think he was going to get the penalty. I mean, I did think it was a penalty, but you're probably right. It was as much of a penalty as the one at the other end. But quickly just touching on Maguire there, and it kind of reverts back to the McGeady point, but I just thought of it now when Bomber was talking. If McGeady was playing, I don't know if Maguire would be is effective because I feel like they're both, you can't have two of them, two luxury players, I'd call them. So I suppose there is that on that debate. But I just thought I would go back, just finish that one off now. I promise I won't mention McGeady again.
Okay, kind of putting a full stop on that one.
Yeah.
So we closed the game out without much concern, and the game finished 2-0. No real worries in the last kind of 10 minutes of the game. Another clean sheet with a patchwork back three, Connor. How much credit do we give Phil Parkinson and, as we said, the drill and the work, the organisation? Or how much is it down to the opposition that we've faced so far, generally offering absolutely nothing going forward?
I mean, to your second point there, I think the lack of crowds is making an impact. I mean, when I used to go to the away games last season, you could see that every game was big, kind of like when Sunderland used to play a Man City at the stadium, like we used to win 1-0, and then kind of everyone got geared up for them games, and it had like a bit of extra spice on it as a supporter. And I think that's helping us at the minute because, you know, you go to these grounds and the players aren't getting that extra sort of 10% off the crowd, and we're maybe not as, I don't want to use the word intimidated, but, you know, it can be hard going to them places. And I remember Lincoln last year, we got beat. And I think that was as much down to the crowd being ferocious and, you know, on the referee to get decisions. And maybe that penalty yesterday would have got given in a situation where there was a crowd there, you know, because every Swindon fan would have been bargaining for it, and it will impact the referee. They're only human. So I think it's more to do with the fact that every time we were playing teams last season and the season before, teams were really up in their games. And I don't think that's me being biased in saying that, you know, because we're such a big club and all that, but I genuinely think that was the case. Teams were looking at it as their biggest game of the season. And when you talk to people from the clubs, whether it be fans or people who work there or even the players, they all said that was the game they look forward to. They look forward to coming to the Stadium Light, and they look forward to coming and playing Sunderland because they knew it was their biggest attendance of the season and it was their biggest away game. So not playing in front of fans is in some way it's benefiting us, I think, because Swindon were just poor. They didn't look up for it. They were weak. There was just not much going on. I mean, you said Burge made one save. I can't even remember that. It just felt like they were really poor, and they were trying to play out the back. And I don't know what it is with teams in League One trying to play out the back, but you've got to be of a certain quality to do that. And that keeper, you know, he nearly got caught up from Maguire. He looked clumsy all game. The defence they had just looked really uncomfortable on the ball, to the point where if you're the manager, like Richie Wellens, what's he doing? He should just say, right, okay, do you know what? We're not going to play it from the back today because Sunderland are pressing we're going to make a mistake. And Swindon were just really, really poor. And I think the opposition this season has been poor against Sunderland. I don't think we've really seen a strong one. I think Bristol Rovers were very well drilled. I would say they've probably the ones who performed the best out of all the teams who played, just because they set their stalls out, and once they got the goal, they kind of sat back and were organised. But everyone else has been really poor this season, you're right. And it's no surprise that, you know, the teams at the top, Hull and Ipswich, and I would probably put us in that bracket as well, you know, we seem to be dealing far better than what we did last season. And I think a lot of it's to do with the crowds.
Bomber, just to bring you in on Connor's point, I thought it was really interesting the other week. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, but there was an interview with Phil Parkinson, and I thought it was really interesting. It might have been his press conference the other week, where he said it's been really important this season without the crowds to build up the intensity in the players, because, as Connor said, they're not getting that from the sidelines, they're not getting that from the away fans or Stadium Light at home games. So to build up that intensity, especially because, you know, in the game against Swindon, that where we, as Connor again said, were pushed from the front and really kind of sat on top of them, and the pressing was at times absolutely fantastic, where it was kind of groups of two, groups of three, kind of ganging up on the ball and winning the ball high up the pitch. Should we give him credit for recognising that in the first place? And you could see him at half time as well, just going off the pitch, where he was trying to get the players up for it. But Parkinson's obviously trying to be the replacement for the fans in getting that intensity up, because they're not getting that from elsewhere.
He definitely deserves credit for it. You know, one thing that you can't say about Parkinson is that he doesn't care. You know, and you can see that passion, whilst in some of his interviews and stuff like that, he does come across as quite dour, and, you know, he's quite monotonous in the way in which he answers questions. You can't say that he doesn't lack passion for the game and wanting to do well. And yeah, I think you're right. It was his interview last week where he said about us having to create our own kind of drive and motivation and determination, and that will be really difficult. More difficult, I think, for us than any other team in the division, because we're used to, you know, having 25,000 people screaming for us as players. I mean, they'll be used to having 25,000 people screaming them on. Whereas now they're playing in completely empty stadiums. Whereas some League One teams, you know, get 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people in, are probably used to not having that sort of atmosphere. So it will play a factor, and it will be a very difficult thing to do. So I think the fact that he has got them working and got them pressing from the front, that was evident yesterday. He definitely deserves credit for that. His style of play and tactical nous aside, one thing you can't accuse him of is not getting his players up for the game. Certainly yesterday, anyway.
Yeah, and I suppose the other aspect to that, you said 25,000 cheering them on. There's probably a decent chunk of that not cheering them on if a few passes go astray as well.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, definitely. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Just on to Charlie Wyke, Bomber, because he got a goal. How did you rate his overall performance, and did his performance means that he deserves to keep his place on Tuesday night? That's a tough one.
I think the fact he scores a goal means that he will keep his place. I'm fed up of having given the same opinion on Charlie Wyke. Like he never really does anything. Well, that's it. He just never really does anything. He doesn't really do anything wrong, but he doesn't really do anything. And yet every now and again he'll come up with a goal which seems to justify his place in the starting lineup. I don't dislike him. I just don't think he offers anything. When you look at the other options that we've got, admittedly, as Connor said earlier, people like Aiden O'Brien haven't really hit the ground running. But you look at what we've got by comparison, and you just wonder how, out of every striking option that we've got, he's the one who's probably played the most minutes, or certainly the most regular. And yet, I think has probably got the least to offer. So it's kind of two parts to my question. To answer your question, sorry, Chris. I think he will keep his place. I don't think he necessarily did enough aside from score a goal, which might sound stupid. So when we're kind of reflecting on the performance of a striker, but I don't think he did anything. I think if you put Danny Graham or you put Will Grigg up front instead of him, either one of those would have scored, possibly 2 or 3. But yeah, he'll play on Tuesday, no doubt. Whether he deserves to or not is open for debate. My personal opinion is no.
Well, Connor, just to bring you in on the Charlie Wyke debate, in the first 20 minutes, there was an interesting scenario where I think it came from Lee Burge. And Lee Burge I can't remember whether it was out of his hands or whether he just kind of kicked it out from the ground. But he kind of kicked it out, and Charlie Wyke almost kind of, in the same style as Niall Quinn, where he started off kind of 10 yards away from where the ball was going to go, and then ran and won the ball and flicked it on. And Maguire was then in a good position. I think Maguire was pulled down, but we found ourselves in attack position. So, I watched that, and when I watched that scenario, I thought, well, that's Charlie Wyke's game. That's what he wants to do. That's what he's there for. So, with the way we play, we don't play like that for 90 minutes. That isn't, we're not going back to the Peter Reid, style where fullbacks get the ball as diagonal balls to Quinn, and that's our first option. And Charlie Wyke's not that first option. So are we a bit harsh sometimes on Charlie Wyke in his performance, considering that we don't necessarily maybe play to his strengths?
I think you're right in some sense. My issue, though, with Charlie Wyke is often that I feel like he doesn't care. He feels like he doesn't go for headers when he should. And the ball goes in the box, he often makes a token effort, like what I would do when I don't want to get my head in there. I would kind of I did go for it, and you kind of run towards it, but you don't actually jump. I feel like he does that a lot. I feel like his attitude sometimes is questionable. But to sort of disagree with what Bomber said about him playing on Tuesday, I think if you've got a striker who's scored in his last 2 games, to not play him in the next game seems a bit counterproductive, because I think Charlie's the one who's probably got the most confidence of all the strikers we have. And I'm not his biggest fan. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's brilliant, because I don't think he is. However, you've got a striker who's got a little bit of momentum, and I don't think any of our other strikers do. So I would give him the chance on Tuesday. And if he scores again, you're talking about 3 and 3. And then you're saying, right, okay, well, he's got something behind him. He's obviously going to have confidence. And I don't think he's had that when he's been at Sunderland. I don't think he's ever been given a good run of games where he scored goals. He came in injured, and from that point, he's just never felt like he's got going. So, yeah, I probably would give him the chance on Tuesday. The style of play doesn't suit him, but I don't think the style of play would suit any striker. I feel like we are a team that utilises sort of individual brilliance going forward. That's where we score a lot of our goals, individual brilliance or defensive errors, which is how Charlie Wyke scored a defensive error where he was just unmarked. And in League One, you probably will score goals by relying on that, because the teams will make mistakes, and you can have players like Gooch or Maguire who can produce that one moment of magic in a game every once in a while that can win you 3 points.
So, I mean, Connor, in summary, undefeated after 5 games, 4 clean sheets out of 5. We can move into third behind Ipswich and Hull if we win our game in hand. Sounds great if I say it like that, but not all the reaction seems to reflect kind of that, that positive summary. And it seems that there's always a but to Sunderland this season. Can you try and summarise and put your finger on what is worrying people despite the good start?
When you watch Sunderland play, it's just not entertaining. And it's not that, I'm bothered about, Barcelona style football. That's not what it is. But I feel like you watch them and you think, it doesn't look like they're going to score here. Defensively, yeah, they look okay. But going forward, there's just nothing going forward. We look anemic in attack. We lack creativity. And I feel like fans are kind of sat there going, well, yeah, we're winning games, but we're not really expressing ourselves. We're winning through errors. We're winning through, as I said before, moments of brilliance. We're not actually spending all game, though, battering the opposition goal, making chances, and giving them a reason to say that, our strikers aren't very good because they're getting chances and they're missing. But we've not seen that. Grigg can play all day long and make runs in the channels and stuff, but if the ball doesn't go to him and the ball isn't played to his feet, then he's not going to be able to do anything. And I feel like every striker we have, we never utilise their strengths. And I think that's the frustration for Sunderland fans, because while we're winning games, it kind of papers over the cracks. But if we lose 2 in a row, I think fans will, get frustrated because the football's terrible to watch. I don't think that's an understatement. It's not entertaining. I found the Charlton game last week, 2 weeks ago, Charlton were there for the taking. And I feel like any manager with a set of balls would have really went to try and win that game. And it felt like even though he did make positive changes, the style of play didn't change to a different, more positive style. Like what happened when we played Oxford, where he actually did change at half time. And I thought when that happened, I kind of thought, right, okay, Parkinson knows what he's doing here. We're set out away from home to sort of nullify the opposition. And then the second half, we changed to a pressing, attacking style, and it really worked. But we've not seen that since. And I would love to see Parkinson. That's why I think he needs to develop as a manager. I would love to see him look at the game like he did the Oxford game, and at half-time make a few tactical changes and say, right, okay, we're going to press, we're going to force the opposition, we're going to try and create chances, we're going to try and get wide and utilise our creative players. I would like to see him do that more, and I think that's the frustration for me as a Sunderland fan, is that I don't feel like there's often a plan B when we're not, ahead in the game.
I mean, Bomber, Connor's just kind of summarised it nicely there. Another game where we haven't kind of created many chances. 2 goals at Swindon were kind of 2 defensive lapses, really, that gave us the 2 goals. Apart from that, didn't create anything at all, really. Do you think we can continue to keep going in this style where we rely on getting a goal out of the 1 or 2 half chances or defensive mistake? Or does it have the potential to backfire on us at some point?
At some point, our luck will run out. We are. I think it's safe to say, and I think everybody can see we are riding our luck a little bit. If that defensive lapse doesn't happen, and all of a sudden Luke O'Nine's penalty is given against him, we find ourselves 1-0 down, and that's a completely different game. And we found ourselves in that position so many times where we've not taken the opportunities, not played particularly well, and gone 1-0 down and scraped a 1-1 draw. I know it's all kind of revisionist, and you look back and go, "Oh, what if this? What if that?" And you could do that until the cows come home, but the fact is we're not playing well. We're riding our luck, and the way that we're playing at the moment, yes, we're winning games, but when we come up against an Ipswich, for example, you look at the goals Ipswich have scored compared to what they've conceded and how they're playing and how they're putting teams away. I would be really fearful about us coming up against Ipswich right now, the way that we're playing. Same with Hull. I know we played him in the Carabao, and obviously it was 0-0 and we looked decent, but they seem to have come on since then even more, so I would be concerned about playing them again. But yeah, our luck will run out unless something changes in the way that we play. And like Connor said, it's you don't want necessarily tiki-taka, beautiful Manchester City, Barcelona style football, but you just want some confidence that actually we're going to be able to create chances, and then it's just down to whether or not the strikers can put those chances away. That's 2 completely different things. You can create the chances and be satisfied as a fan that, okay, yeah, we're creating enough, we're looking good going forward. It's just a case that the strikers aren't putting it away. When we're not even really creating chances, that's a whole different problem. And that's something that needs addressing, and it needs addressing soon, because, like I said, our luck will run out on that eventually.
It's interesting you mentioned Ipswich, because I think I was looking earlier and they've conceded 1 goal as well.
Mm.
and they've played a game more, but they seem to have sorted the front line out and scoring a few more goals. So yeah. Back at the Stadium of Light against Crewe on Tuesday, Connor. They're sitting mid-table. They've won 2 and lost 2 in their first 5 games. Obviously, we hope Hume and Willis are going to be fit. I'm not sure if there's any latest news on that. But assuming they are fit, do you think they'll come straight back in, considering that we know kind of Parkinson's loyalty to players who kind of do well for him? And should we be expecting 3 points?
Definitely expecting 3 points. Every game we play at this level, we should expect 3 points. And that's not me being... That is me being arrogant, but you know what? We are Sunderland. We've probably got the biggest budget in the league, apart from maybe Hull. We should be winning every game. But to the first point of the team selection, Denver Hume and Jordan Willis, if they are fit, they will slot back in. I can't see Parkinson not doing that because they're 2 important players. And if we had Denver Hume playing, we would have created more chances. I felt like there was a lack of crosses. And I would probably say Denver creates maybe 80% of our crosses in a game. Whether or not they're good or not, that's a different argument. But he's always bombing down that side, and he's always... Oh, bomber as well. Bombing. He's always running down that side, though, whipping balls in. So I think Denver will come in. That's a no-brainer. Willis, I think I read somewhere that it was just an impact injury and he was having a scan, but they don't think it's serious. So I suspect Willis will be back in on Tuesday.
It looked like it, didn't it? It looked like he just got trod on after the ball had gone.
Yeah, so I think Willis will come back in on Tuesday, and then that poses the question of what to do in defence. I would actually hesitate, though, in dropping McLaughlin, just because I feel like he's not been given a chance for Sunderland, and he's finally got a game and he did okay, and he's probably got a little bit of confidence and he feels good about himself because he played all right as well in national duty, and then you're just going to take him out and then limit him to being a time-wasting substitution in the 90th minute. I don't feel like that's productive. So in some ways, I kind of hope he finds a way of getting McLaughlin back in there, but I also know that, you know, it's about winning games and picking up points, so if Willis comes in, it seems natural that McLaughlin would drop out.
Yeah, well, going off the first few games, especially at home, you'd like to think if McLaughlin comes in, he won't actually be doing very much, to be honest, at the back. So just stick him in, throw him in, give him 90 minutes. If Willis is a doubt, there's no point in kind of risking him, really, is it, in theory? But Bomber, I mean, going back to the Stadium of Light, got a mid-table side on the back of a good away win. I mean, we might have already answered this, but do you see at all that maybe gradually we start committing a few more players forward and maybe becoming a bit more positive, especially in some of these home games?
Yeah, I think we have to. You know, teams come, whether there's fans in the ground or not, teams come to the Stadium of Light not to get beat, and we take too long to recognise that as a team. So we start off almost just as cagey as them, with almost a mentality of let's keep this tight, let's not lose this game. We have seen a little bit more attacking prowess, although again not really necessarily creating anything. But I think we just need to set out from the off that we're at home. We know that these mid-table teams, well, really anywhere in the table, bar outside of the top 3 or 4 positions, anyone will come to the Stadium of Light with the aspirations of not getting beat. It's just fact, regardless of whether there's fans in there or not. But we need to recognise that from minute one and just pile the pressure on them. You know, get more players forward. You know, home games against the likes of Crewe, etc. No disrespect to them, but we don't need to be playing 2 holding midfielders. You know, get another forward-minded player on there. Let's attack with 4, 5, 6 players rather than with just 2 or 3. And those teams will eventually crumble. That said, there's obviously the caveat that we need to be performing well in those forward runs, forward passes, and actually create the chances to put teams away. But yeah, we should almost be going out with an all-out attack attitude at home, really.
I think you said there we don't want to disrespect Crewe, but I feel like that's actually the problem. I feel like we give these teams too much respect. You know, I think we should go in with a disrespectful attitude of, yeah, do you know what? We are actually better than you. We've got better players, so we're just going to attack you from the minute off and sign to see what happens. That would be nice to see them do that. I mean, we did it against Wycombe last year, and I think we won that one 5-0. And Wycombe, of course, got promoted off merit as well, so they were a good team.
They were awful that day. Absolutely awful.
Yeah.
Gifted us 4 goals.
Well, they're doing okay in the Championship. I think they've scored 1 goal this season. So they're doing okay for a team that finished 9th.
They weren't bitter about the result either, were they?
Yeah, no.
Did you see the social media?
I did. Not very professional. But what would you expect from a League One? Oh, sorry, they're a Championship club. Yeah.
Yeah, you had to get one in there, Connor.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and I like your message to Phil Parkinson, Bomber, all out attack.
Yeah, please.
That's our final message. Well, I'm fully expecting the same again, so it'll be interesting to see what we'll see on Tuesday. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much to Connor Bromley. Always a pleasure.
Thanks. No, it's nice to be in the guest seat for a change.
Yes, you had a rest this week. And to you as well, Bomber, and thank you for wearing a T-shirt this time.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Hang on, what? Thanks for wearing a T-shirt. Hang on.
So it's a long story, Connor. Basically, last time I was on the Exiles pod, it got binned because I was recording without a shirt on, and my mic was scratching against my chest hair.
Oh.
So the whole thing got binned because of it. So yeah, now the world knows about it. So thanks very much.
What you
Chris.
could have done is still not wear a top but shave your chest hair. That's what you should have done.
Maybe I'll do that next time for you.
Thanks, Connor. I think I'll drop out of that one. Well, thanks again to everyone listening, and please subscribe and like and give us lots of stars and all that carry on if you did enjoy it. It is much appreciated. But from us three today, it's bye for now.